So, you're prepping for the CAPM exam, right? You've probably got your head full of dozens of terms. But here's the kicker. The exam doesn't just ask what a term means, it asks who is supposed to do something in a really tricky situation. In this explainer, we're going to break down a framework for project leadership that'll help you ace those questions.
Sure, you might know the textbook definition of a project sponsor, but let's be real. The exam isn't going to ask you for that. It's going to throw a complex scenario at you and expect you to know right then and there who needs to step up. It's all about applying what you know when the pressure's on.
And this is where so many people trip up. I mean, getting the project manager's authority mixed up with the sponsor's job, that's not just a small slip-up. That's the kind of thing that can seriously cost you valuable points on exam day.
Okay, so let's dive into the stuff that really trips people up, the things that go way beyond what you'd find in a normal study guide. You know that feeling when you're staring at a practice question and you're just not sure, is this a project manager thing or a sponsor thing? Or trying to figure out if you need to be a tough manager or an inspiring leader? And this whole emotional intelligence thing, it sounds pretty straightforward, but then it shows up as the key to some crazy scenario question. Yeah, we're going to close that gap.
All right, so how do we actually get from just knowing the theory to, applying it? Well, it all starts with a really clear framework for who does what. Let's break it down.
Okay, here's a super simple way to think about it. Your project manager, they're all about the how and when, the nitty-gritty planning, the schedules, the risks. The sponsor, on the other hand, they're the what and why. We're talking funding, big picture decisions, and the team, they're the ones actually doing the work. Just keeping that simple idea in your head can be a total game changer for breaking down exam questions fast.
Okay, let's try a classic exam-style question. A project hits a funding snag, and it needs a sign-off from the higher-ups. Whose job is it to fix that? Is that the project manager who's deep in the day-to-day details, or is it someone else? What do you think?
But, just knowing the roles, that's only half the battle. The next big piece of the puzzle is figuring out what action you need to take. And that brings us to a really key distinction. Are you leading or are you managing?
Here's an easy way to break it down. Management, that's all about controlling things. Plans, processes, budgets, all that stuff. Leadership, though, is about influencing people. It's about inspiring them, motivating them, and really empowering them to do their best work. And you can bet the toughest questions on the exam are going to test if you know when to control and when it's time to influence.
So, picture this. You've got a team of absolute rock stars, technically brilliant, but they're just not clicking. Motivation is in the tank. What do? Do you double down on management and tighten up the process with more controls? Or is this a moment where you need to step up and lead? This is exactly the kind of judgment call the CAPM exam wants to see you make.
Okay, and if leadership is all about people, then you've got to have a way to, understand people. And that brings us to what I like to call the secret weapon of any great project manager: emotional intelligence. EQ. And look, EQ isn't just some fluffy buzzword. It's a real practical toolkit. First, you've got to be self-aware. Like, how do your own emotions and stress affect the team? Next up is communication, building those solid relationships. And finally, it's about knowing how to handle the hard stuff, like when disagreements pop up.
All right, let's put that to the test. Imagine two of your star players are clashing, and it's starting to slow down the whole project. What's your first move? Do you jump in and use your communication skills to mediate? Or is this more about managing your own response, staying calm, and not making things worse? See? The exam is all about checking if you can handle the human side of things.
Okay, so we've covered roles, actions, and those crucial people skills. Let's pull this all together and see how this whole framework really makes you exam ready.
So here's the bottom line, the big takeaway. Passing the CAPM isn't just about memorizing tools and charts. It's way more than that. It's about really understanding people, what good leadership looks like, and knowing exactly who is supposed to do what. That's the combo that really separates the great project managers from the rest. The real secret to this exam is being able to see how all these ideas, the roles, the leadership styles, the EQ, pop up in these tricky scenarios. Once you train your brain to spot them, you are way ahead of the game. At the end of the day, this isn't about memorizing a dictionary of terms. It's about that feeling of confidence, knowing exactly who needs to act no matter what situation gets thrown at you. That's the skill that's going to help you absolutely nail those tough questions.
So that was just a quick taste of how having a solid framework can make a huge difference. If you're ready to stop just memorizing and actually start mastering the art of project leadership, believe me, there's so much more to dive into. So the only question left is, are you ready to start applying it?